Okay. Hi, this is Tracy from RX Performance, Tracy Lewis Performance, and we've got a new 2017 Ford EcoBoost 2.7 liter that we're going to be doing the catch can system install on. We're going to do it start to finish so we can show every step of this. If we pan over here, tools that you're going to need. A hose cutter you can get at Harbor Freight, very inexpensive, or a razor blade works. Just be very careful because you're going to cut the hose to size. You're going to need a couple of 7/16 or 11 millimeter if all you have is metric for our bolts that fasten the clamp here on. You're going to need a 10 millimeter to take the engine cover nuts off and the coolant tank mount. You're going to also need a 1/2-inch drill bit. We include the 3/8 NPT tap for the airbox side. You can hold the tap with a small crescent wrench or a pliers or anything. We just have a tap tool here for it. And so we'll get started by first taking the engine cover off. I like to use cotton towels for fender skirts because they don't scratch, this being a brand new truck. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take off the oil fill cap, and anything that we remove here of the stock parts, put in a big Ziploc bag and keep so that you can return this to stock if you ever choose. You'll see we have a 10 millimeter nut right here, and we also have one on this side, and we're going to remove these, making sure you don't drop one down in the oil fill cap. Opening, and then you just have to lift up and pull forward, and the engine cover comes off. Now we're going to set this aside. And then we can see how all of our hoses are run here. First thing we're going to do is, this is the factory clean side hose. There's a little tab on it. You just push that tab over and that pops right off. We're going to snap out the flow sensor, which is actually a map sensor, out of the housing. And then we're going to release the other end of this, and then this is going to get put away in case you need it in the future to go back to stock. You can see the little tab that releases, so we're going to set that aside as well. Now we're also going to eliminate this, and the same type of tabs. And as you can see, looking into that, that is saturated with oil already, so this has been ingesting quite a bit of oil, even though it's brand new. And we'll set these over here to put away in a Ziploc bag at another time. Now, with this one, since it doesn't get driven hard, we're not going to do the drill mod into the passenger side turbo inlet. We're going to rely all on the driver's side turbo inlet on this one. If you tow or go wide open throttle, or if you're modifying yours, you definitely want to drill and add the second barb into the turbo inlet side as well and tee those together. Again, we won't be doing that here. So how this is going to work is, our filtered fresh air, instead of coming from here, it's going to come directly from the filtered portion of the air box. So we're going to take this front cover off. We're going to drill and tap in and put our fitting in here. Again, a black plastic plug can easily be put in there if you want to return it to stock, and it'll look stock. We're going to cap this barb here, and our clean side separator is where that filtered fresh air is going to come in from. We're going to use the intake manifold for evacuation when not in boost. With these small displacement twin turbo engines, that's only at idle and deceleration. So that's going to provide our idle and deceleration evacuation like it did stock. We're going to be using this barb then for our evacuation when in boost, and that's from the Venturi effect of the air that passes it is going to create a suction, and that's going to provide your evacuation suction in boost, which is most of the operating mode this is in. So we're converting this so it's going to provide full-time evacuation to remove the contaminants and unburnt fuel and everything else that are causing the wear issues on these engines. We're going to evacuate the foul or dirty vapors out of the passenger side valve cover, and that is going to go to the inlet or the center of the can. And that is going to separate, trap, contain the unburnt fuel, the water vapor, the acids, the abrasive particulate matter, and other compounds that cause your engine wear and contaminate your engine oil. Then all that enters your intake air charge from now on, as you can see there's oil all over here, is going to be cleaned, scrubbed vapors. We're going to prevent up to 85% of the intake valve coking. We're going to extend your oil life substantially because we're removing most of the contaminants before they have a chance to settle and mix with the engine oil. And we're also going to increase fuel economy because there's going to be less knock retard, which is the computer ECU pulling timing to address detonation, because as we remove those compounds that cause detonation, the computer will keep your engine timing advance at optimum levels. So engine runs better, a little bit more power, 1 to 3 miles per gallon improvement in fuel economy, and we're eliminating most of the issues that cause the wear, premature wear and damage. I want to point out here, only run a good full synthetic motor oil. We highly recommend AMSOIL 5W50. It deals very well with the fuel dilution issues that all direct injection engines have that reduce your viscosity of the oil. And the 5W portion has excellent cold flow properties, so you're sacrificing nothing there. Excellent move to make. Another one in southern climates, 1550 Mobil 1 is a good oil as well. Number one choice would be the AMSOIL Signature Series 5W50. Okay, so we're going to go over here, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the clamp that attaches to the can itself. You usually take a flat blade screwdriver, and you just want to turn it and spread this slightly so it does not scratch the finish on the can. And let me grab a flat blade since I wasn't prepared for that. And that's going to allow us to slide this up. And we're going to figure somewhere in this area. We're going to tighten it for the time being. And to do so, a 11mm or 7/16, and we just pinch it tight. It's a nylock nut on there to keep it from backing out. And next thing we're going to do is go into our small parts package. And you may not use everything that's in here. This is the plastic plug we include if you want to put your airbox back to stock. And we're going to, as you can see the angle there, we're going to put these two together. And again, these are 11mm or 7/16. And I've got it snug enough I can move it. We're going to go to a 10mm. And right here you have a 10mm bolt that holds this end of the coolant reservoir. This is going to go underneath it. You're going to reinstall that bolt. And that's going to allow the can to mount right here. We're going to take the two 1/4-20 bolts off of here. Make sure the lock washers are in place. And we're going to mount the can here. And we dropped one, which you'll probably do. Did it go all the way through? Excellent, thank you. Okay. Fingers aren't as nimble as they used to be. Okay. Going to use a box end or open end wrench. Get this at the height that you want it. I like to put it at the bottom so that we can go underneath here with our hoses. And we're going to finish tightening. And we have the can mounted. Now, first thing that we're going to do is we're going to place the vacuum cap here onto this barb here. Make sure it's nice and secure on there. We're then going to take the always have an adjustable wrench for these top AN fittings. We're going to orient them so we can have lines running across the front to go in. Okay, make sure they're tight so they won't leak. And we're going to take our hose, and it's a good idea to have a little bit of WD-40 handy. Let me grab some.
Okay.
So, I like to put a little bit inside the hose ends. That allows it to slide all the way on. These need no clamps. It's a push lock AN fitting. And we're going to run the center of the can to the passenger side valve cover. So we're going to be routing it through, make sure we're long enough. Take our hose cutter, and go underneath. And it's going to route right here so it fits nicely underneath the cover. We're going to put a little bit of WD-40 on this. And that's going to again allow us to slide this on easier. And this is going to snap right in place. So we include the genuine OEM connectors. So now we've got the center of the can to the foul side exit, passenger side valve cover. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to come off the intake manifold inlet, which is our intake manifold vacuum source, and we use the straight connector for it, and that is going to come around to one of the outer fittings on the can. And that snaps directly on like that. And Mike, we could use a 90 here if we need in the future. This is going to run underneath here as well. And we're going to install one of the check valves. Always blow through. Make sure it's working correctly. And the arrow, the flow is going to go from the can to the engine. So we're going to cut our hose here. We're going to orient this correctly. Again, a little bit of WD-40 makes things easier. And then we take the other end and cut it to length. Should have more than enough hose in the kit. And there, we have our check valve inline in place. And this is going to provide our evacuation at idle and deceleration. Next thing we're going to do is the secondary evacuation source, and that is going to be a little different. As we had removed the flow sensor from the factory line, and you'll see on the end here with the O-ring, it's actually a little map sensor. It is measuring suction or pressure. So we have a little T right here. Okay. All right, so we're going to take this sensor and we're going to place this end of the hose and we're going to clamp it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Make sure that's snug so it doesn't fall out. That's really the only place we need a clamp. And then this is going to tee into the hose that's coming off of here. And then this we will just zip tie up underneath here, and that will be out of the way. So we're going to take a small portion length of hose. We're going to slide one end of the T into it, and the other end is going to snap onto that. Now we're going to secure this with the included zip tie. Just to the coil wires is fine. Cut off the tail of the zip tie, and we're now nearly complete with the catch can side of it. Clean side will come after we put the engine cover back on. So we're going to take another length of hose, and we're going to again arrow, blow through, make sure it only flows one way. A little bit of WD-40. And this is going to go on to the other end. Again, arrow flowing away from the can. Other end of our T here. Then we're going to cut this to length. A little bit of WD-40. And this will slide on the opposite outer fitting. Check valve is in line, flowing away. And we have the intake manifold vacuum providing idle and deceleration evacuation. Venturi effect, turbo inlet, suction for in-boost evacuation. Now that we're this far, we're going to reinstall the engine cover. And we're going to finish off the clean side separator. Make sure the engine cover slides into the slots in the rear. You're going to take your nuts and secure your engine cover back down. And these hoses, just make sure they are not pinched. Right. And we've got that finished. Next thing we're going to do is take the clean side separator, and as you can see, we have O-rings on here, a little bit of assembly grease so that this will come off and on. You're going to place the oil fill cap down in, turn it until it seals secure in there. You may need to use the pliers on it. Because once it's in, you don't have to remove it to add oil in the future. There we go. You want to make sure that that O-ring is completely seated, and then we're just removing this by pulling straight up or pushing it down in. Now our filtered fresh air, as you know, we capped the barb on the driver's side valve cover, is going to run to the filtered side of the air intake. So we're going to unsnap the two snaps here. We're going to unscrew the clamp. That'll allow us to remove this. We're going to drill approximately right here. We're going to take the tap. We're only going to screw that in maybe halfway because we want a nice tight seal with the threads of the fitting. So you're just going to simply run that tap in about halfway, back it back out. Take one of the 90 degrees, and that is simply going to thread in, and then orient it so it's facing this direction. Again, in your package, save this little cap. It's the same thread. If you remove this to return it to stock, that cap goes right in. Now we're going to reinstall this. And we're just going to measure and cut a length of line to attach it to the cap. we have completed system. We're going on to the barb here and over here. So our filtered fresh air comes in through here, travels around the camshafts, down through the oil return galleys, into the center of the crankcase, where it is flushing and making up for the foul, contaminant-laden vapors being sucked out the opposite side. I'm gonna wipe things down a little here, and now we're going to start it up and make sure we have no leaks, no check engine light, and everything is fine. If you want to go ahead and jump in there, Richard, and pick up our tools. Start her up. And we've got no vacuum leaks, no check engine light, everything is running properly. So what we're going to do next is we're going to add the drain tube, and we're going to have that extend just slightly out the bottom so a oil drain pan can be placed under there. You're going to want to check your can when you first install it at about 500 to 1,000 miles so you can determine what the consumption rate or fill rate is of the can on your engine. Every engine is different. When you drain it, dispose of the contents as you would any drain oil. That's not just oil in there, it's approximately 70% water and acids, 23% raw fuel, and only 7% will be oil that's trapped, saturated with abrasive particulate matter. So none of that can be reused. You never want to return that to the engine. And we've now addressed most of the issues causing the premature